Welcome to Pain in the Grass, the official Lawn Pride podcast, where we dig deep into the real problems hiding in your yard. From weeds to grubs to mystery brown spots, we've got the dirt. Let's grow better together.
Imagine you are a manager at a really large company, and you have this one particular employee.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Right. So on the surface, they seem completely harmless. Honestly, they're just a little incompetent. They hang out by the water cooler, kind of clumsy, occasionally bumping into things or like dropping their pens.
It's a bit of a nuisance, really.
Exactly. A nuisance, sure, but nothing you would actually write them up for. They're just sort of, there. But then you review the security footage from after hours.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And you find out that when nobody is looking, this same bumbling employee is down in the basement holding a sled hammer and actively dismantling the structural foundation of your entire building.
Oh, wow. The ultimate corporate saboteur. Just smiling at you in the break room during the day while quietly ensuring the roof is going to collapse on your head by nightfall.
That is the absolute perfect way to put it. And welcome to today's deep dive. We have a really unique mission for you today. We're uncovering the truth about a silent underground destroyer.
And our source material for this is really fun. It's this incredibly clever, creatively framed piece from a company called Lawn Pride of North Charlotte.
Yeah, they actually wrote an employee spotlight piece. But instead of highlighting some great regional sales manager or something, they are profiling a major agricultural nuisance.
Right. They treat this destructive beetle as if it were a terrible hire. I mean, the profile even comes complete with a resume. It lists its likes, dislikes, and special skills.
Which is just a brilliant way to frame a problem that most people, frankly, completely misunderstand. Because, we just aren't wired to look for issues we can't actually see.
No, we really aren't.
So the employee in question here is the Masked Chafer. And the reason we are bringing this to you today is that we usually think of our lawns or our gardens as like a surface level battle.
Right. What's happening right in front of us?
Exactly. You look out your window, you see a dandelion popping up, you go and pull the weed, you see a dry yellow patch of grass, you drag the sprinkler out. We manage our environment based entirely on what is visible to the naked eye.
Which, honestly, is a fundamental flaw in how we approach living ecosystems. We are so conditioned to react to visual stimuli.
Yeah.
But whether you are talking about a giant old-growth forest or just that little patch of green in your backyard, the most devastating damage almost always happens completely out of sight.
Down in the dirt.
Yes. By the time the surface actually shows signs of distress, well, the underground war has often already been lost.
And to figure out how to effectively fire this terrible employee, we really have to read its resume. We have to understand its incredibly bizarre two-part life cycle.
Because this pest doesn't just show up on day one and start wrecking things. It actually has a highly sophisticated biological strategy.
Yeah, the source breaks the Masked Chafer's life into two distinct stages. So stage one features the adult beetle during the summer months, and then stage two is the grub phase, which takes place entirely underground.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because that first stage is so deceptive, the adult Masked Chafer beetles are those bumbling, annoying bugs you see buzzing around your porch lights in the middle of summer.
Oh, yeah, you know the ones. They smack into the glass, they fall on their backs on the patio, and their little legs are just spinning around. They look like the most incompetent creatures on the planet.
They really do. But reading this source, I realized they're basically a biological Trojan horse. They look like clumsy, harmless little annoyances, but they are secretly deploying an invisible army right into your soil.
What's fascinating here is the evolutionary logic behind that clumsy behavior. They aren't just blindly flying around hitting walls for fun.
Right.
The adult beetles are actually on a highly specific reconnaissance mission. They are actively seeking out environments that are perfectly primed to feed their young.
Yeah, and according to the source, their likes on that resume include warm season lawns, so specifically things like Bermuda and zoysia grasses, plus moist soil conditions and the heat of a North Carolina summer.
I read that and immediately wondered, well, why those grasses? What makes Bermuda grass the luxury suite for a beetle?
I mean, it really comes down to root density and soil mechanics. Warm season grasses like Bermuda and zoysia, they thrive in the intense heat of summer, which is exactly when these beetles are active.
Okay.
And these grasses produce incredibly thick, juicy, aggressive root systems. They often create this dense layer of thatch on the surface. So for a female masked chafer, that thick roof system is basically an all-you-can-eat buffet for her babies.
Oh, wow. And the source mentions moist soil as well. That isn't just a preference for them, right? It's a biological necessity.
Exactly. Because they need something soft to dig into.
Hmm.
A female beetle needs soil soft enough to burrow into so she can lay her eggs safely below the surface.
That makes sense.
But more importantly, beetle eggs are highly prone to desiccation.
Desiccation, so drying out.
Right.
Yeah.
If she lays her eggs in dry, hard-packed dirt, the eggs will simply dry out and die before they ever even hatch. They absolutely need ambient soil moisture to survive that incubation period.
So they are intentionally setting their offspring up for success in the exact places that homeowners are spending all their time and money trying to cultivate.
Yeah.
I mean, you water your lawn to make it lush, you soften up the soil, and the adult masked chafer senses that moisture, sees the porch light, and thinks, perfect. Soft dirt and healthy roots. I'll drop the kids off right here.
They literally weaponize your own yard work against you.
It is such a tragic irony. The harder you work to create the perfect environment for your grass, the more attractive you make it for this specific saboteur.
And then the eggs hatch, the Trojan horse deploys, and we enter stage 2, the grubs.
Right. They clock in for work entirely out of sight, and the ticking time bomb goes off, which means we really need to look at the special skills section of this insect's resume.
This is where the silent sabotage happens. So the grubs live just beneath the soil surface, and they feed directly on the grass roots.
They are severing the literal supply lines of the plant.
Exactly. If you think about plant anatomy, the roots are essentially the mouths of the grass. They draw up water and vital nutrients through capillary action.
So when the grubs chew through those roots, the blade of grass sitting above ground is effectively amputated from its life source.
It is. And the source outlines the symptoms homeowners eventually see, and it sounds miserable. You get these brown or thinning patches that just don't get better no matter how much you run the sprinkler.
Oh, and the turf gets this spongy, soft feeling when you walk on it, almost like walking on a thick mattress or something.
Yeah. And then there is the loose carpet effect. The grass literally pulls right up off the dirt in big chunks like a rug that has lost its grip on the floor.
Plus, the grubs attract all these secondary invaders. Birds, raccoons, moles, animals that come and dig up the yard searching for a snack.
That visual of the lawn rolling up like a carpet is just so striking because it perfectly illustrates the structural collapse. The biological anchors are completely gone. The grass blades might still look green for a few days, but they're essentially just sitting loose on top of the dirt.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I was reading the source's description of these raccoons and moles tearing up the yard, and I had a real moment of confusion.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, is the yard actually dying from the tiny little grubs eating the roots? Or is the lawn getting completely destroyed because a 20-pound raccoon is out there at midnight, literally rolling up the turf like a burrito to find a meal? Because from where a homeowner is standing, I mean, the raccoon sure looks like the main villain in this story.
I can absolutely see why someone would think that. It is a classic case of confusing the symptom with the disease.
Okay, explain that.
Well, the destruction is actually a dual-pronged attack. The grubs cut the turf's supply lines quietly, which causes that spongy feel and the initial brown patches.
Right.
But the raccoons and the moles, they are actually functioning as a biological alarm system.
A biological alarm system that completely trashes your property just to tell you there is a problem.
A highly destructive alarm bell, yes. But the crucial point to understand is the sequence of events here. By the time you wake up and see that a raccoon has flipped over huge sections of your grass, the root system was already fundamentally compromised.
Oh, because they couldn't roll it up otherwise.
Exactly. Think about it. A raccoon is strong, sure, but healthy Bermuda grass has a root system that weaves together like a dense underground net. It is incredibly difficult to pull up.
Yeah, that stuff is tough.
So the raccoons are only able to peel the grass back so effortlessly because the grubs have already eaten all the roots holding it down. The presence of the animals just confirms that the underground structural integrity is completely gone.
So the raccoon isn't the vandal at all. It is just an opportunist capitalizing on the sabotage our employee has already finished down in the basement.
Exactly.
And that frantic realization, waking up to a yard that looks like it was tilled by a drunk farmer, that is usually where human psychology kicks in and makes everything worse.
Oh, absolutely. A homeowner sees this massive brown patch, they see the animal damage, and they just panic. They run straight to the local hardware store looking for a quick fix.
And that panic is exactly what the hardware stores are counting on. Even though buying a random bag of chemicals off the shelf is arguably the worst thing you can do at that stage.
The source is incredibly explicit about this. Timing is absolutely everything.
Right. They call it the timing trap. The source says homeowners fail to manage this for three distinct reasons. They apply products too early, they apply them way too late after the damage is already severe, or they just treat the visible symptoms and ignore the bugs entirely.
And if you mismanage this, you get a massive snowball effect. Severe thinning, drought stress, total loss of curb appeal, and eventually you are paying thousands of dollars for expensive reseeding.
Not to mention the secondary ecosystem collapse.
Yes, when a lawn is weakened and thinned out, sunlight suddenly hits all the weed seeds that are just resting on the soil. Instantly, you invite crabgrass invasions, fungal diseases, and other opportunistic pests.
So what does this all mean for the average person? Say I am a homeowner and I see a big brown patch forming in August. My very first instinct, before I even know about the grubs, is usually to fertilize it.
Sure, that makes sense intuitively.
Right, I see a struggling plant, I want to give it food. But if I am understanding the biology you described earlier, treating visible grub damage with DIY fertilizer is basically like taking cough syrup after a cold has already turned into severe double pneumonia. I mean, if I am pouring expensive fertilizer and heavy water onto a lawn suffering from masked chafers, aren't I literally just throwing my money into the dirt?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you are entirely right. You're running headfirst into a fundamental law of botany. You cannot feed a plant that has no mouths.
Wow.
As
Yeah.
we established, the roots are the mouths of the grass. If the grubs have chewed off the roots, pouring nitrogen, phosphorus, and gallons of water onto the surface does absolutely nothing for the grass.
Because it can't drink it.
The plant physically cannot uptake those resources. The water just runs off, and the expensive fertilizer just sits there, perfectly poised to feed the weeds that are about to take over the dead space.
That is maddening to think about. You are out there sweating on a Saturday, jacking up your water bill, spreading expensive chemicals, feeling like you are fixing the problem, and the grass is still slowly starving to death because its mouths have been amputated?
It is the ultimate hidden cost, and it really underscores why the authors of the source material focus so heavily on proactive measures.
Right.
What starts as a simple grub problem cascades into systemic lawn failure because the foundational immunity of the turf has been destroyed.
You are no longer fighting one single pest. You are fighting the collapse of your yard's entire microenvironment.
Precisely. Because those reactive treatments are basically useless by the time you see the damage, the only logical step is to stop the problem before the eggs even hatch. Or right as the grubs are incredibly small and vulnerable.
Which brings us to how Lawn Pride of North Charlotte, the authors behind our source material, actually handle this employee. We need to look at their professional playbook.
Right. They don't just wait around for the phone to ring when a raccoon has already destroyed a neighborhood. They look at the Masked Chafer's dislikes section on that resume.
And the dislikes are great. This bug hates strong roots, it hates healthy, dense lawns, and it really hates preventative treatments.
So the professional approach is entirely built around monitoring, precise timing, and customized treatment plans specifically designed for North Carolina.
They focus on early detection and protecting the roots well before the severe damage occurs.
It is a philosophy of proactive defense rather than a reactive scramble.
I was reading that section and thinking about it like a home security system. It makes absolutely zero sense to wait until your house has been completely robbed, all your furniture is gone, and your windows are smashed in, to finally say, you know what, I should probably install some locks.
Yeah, that'll be a little late.
You want the alarm system armed and the deadbolts thrown before the thief even tests the doorknob.
This raises an important question, though, about the nature of those preventative treatments. The source repeatedly emphasizes North Carolina conditions and North Carolina summers. Why does that geographical distinction matter so much?
Wait, I actually had the exact same thought. I didn't get it. I mean, a bug is a bug, right? Why can't I just buy a generic bag of grub control off the internet, throw it down in my yard in May, and be done with it regardless of where I live?
You would think so, but no. Hyperlocal knowledge is the critical variable that makes or breaks this entire process. Generic pest control almost always fails because a standardized calendar doesn't account for the localized life cycle of the insect.
Okay.
The professionals use something called phenology.
Phenology. Break that down for me.
Well, it is basically the study of cyclic and seasonal natural phenomena, especially in relation to climate and plant and animal life.
So like tracking the seasons.
Right. And insects are cold-blooded. So their development is entirely dictated by heat accumulation in their environment. A summer in North Carolina warms up at a very different rate than a summer in Ohio or, a summer in Texas.
Obviously, yeah.
So professionals track what are called degree days, and they monitor the actual temperature of the soil. They know that the Masked Chafer emerges, breeds, and hatches only when the soil hits specific thermal milestones.
Oh, wow. So they aren't looking at a calendar on the wall at all. They are looking at the actual thermal data of the dirt in that specific zip code.
Precisely. If it is an unusually hot spring, the bugs hatch early. If it's a cold spring, they hatch late.
Okay, so what happens if you just guess?
If you just guess and apply a preventative treatment too early in the year, the chemical breaks down and washes out of the soil long before the eggs ever hatch. The barrier is just gone when the grubs finally arrive.
And if you apply it too late?
If you apply it too late, the grubs have already grown too large. Once they reach a certain stage in their life cycle, they actually stop feeding to prepare to overwinter in the soil.
Oh, wow.
And if they aren't feeding, they aren't ingesting the treatment, meaning your chemical application is completely useless.
So if you miss the biological window by even a few weeks in either direction, the product does nothing. You are trying to outsmart a creature that has spent millions of years evolving to perfectly sync with the climate of that specific region.
That is the reality of it. The professionals aren't just spraying chemicals blindly. They are tracking the local ecosystem. They know exactly when the Trojan horse is arriving, and they know exactly the weeks the soldiers are going to step out. They apply the defense right at that precise moment.
Dealing with this terrible employee isn't about fighting nature with brute force or just dumping chemicals everywhere. It is about outsmarting its schedule. You have to understand the life cycle better than the bug does.
Which requires observation, patience, and highly specialized expertise. Those are things that the average person who just wants to drink a coffee and look at a nice green yard on a Saturday morning usually doesn't have the time or the tools to master.
Okay, let's bring this all together. We set out today to uncover the truth about this silent destroyer, and the core lessons here are stark. The Masked Chafer is a silent, root-destroying machine.
It really is.
And treating the visible symptoms, the brown spots, the spongy turf, it's a losing battle because you are essentially treating the ghost of a plant that has already lost its mouths.
Timing, hyperlocal knowledge, and prevention are literally the only true defenses against this underground saboteur.
Right.
And I want to step back and speak directly to you for a moment.
Yeah.
Even if you don't live anywhere near North Carolina, and even if you don't have a single blade of Bermuda grass to your name, this deep dive offers an incredibly powerful metaphor for problem solving in general.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Think about your own life, your own projects, or your business. If you find yourself constantly throwing resources at a problem, like pouring expensive fertilizer and endless water on a dying lawn, and you are seeing absolutely zero improvement, you need to stop looking at the surface. You likely have a root issue hidden beneath the soil. You are treating symptoms while entirely ignoring the cause.
The structural foundation is literally being compromised in the basement while you are busy polishing the windows on the ground floor.
That is the perfect analogy. You have to dig beneath the surface to find out what is actually consuming your resources before it's too late.
I love that takeaway. And I want to leave you with one final, somewhat provocative thought to mull over, building on that detail about the animal activity we discussed earlier.
Okay.
So we talked about birds, raccoons, and moles tearing up the yard to eat these grubs. As homeowners, we view these animals as terrible pests because they ruin the pristine aesthetic of the grass.
Right, they make a mess.
Think about this from the perspective of the broader ecosystem. These larger animals are actively seeking out and eating the exact grubs that are destroying the plants. Are those raccoons and birds actually acting as a natural, entirely free pest control service?
Oh, wow.
And by trying to engineer the absolute perfect, pristine, unbroken carpet of a lawn, are we accidentally going to war with the very ecosystem that is naturally trying to help us manage the problem?
It is a profound question to leave on. We often fight the cure simply because we don't like how the medicine looks.
It really makes you look at your own backyard entirely differently. The next time you are sitting outside on a summer night and you see a clumsy beetle bumping into your porch light, remember, it might be time to review your payroll, dig a little deeper, and fire an employee you didn't even know you hired.
Thank you for listening to the Pain in the Grass podcast, sponsored by Lawn Pride of North Charlotte, Huntersville, your go-to name in turf care for homeowners and businesses seeking beauty, quality, and reliability, powered by family and fueled by passion. Until next time, make sure to take care of that pain in the grass.